Hey, what's up, guys? It's Art Book Addiction here, and we're here with a new artist journey video. So today we're going to be talking about figure, okay, and the importance of learning it, and how it's honestly kind of the hardest thing to learn in art, right? I guess depending on who you are and what you do, but figure I think is definitely hard for everyone, especially younger artists. Okay, there are people who are professionals that still struggle with figure, right? Um, so yeah, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to figure. I think it's one of the like the ultimate things to draw, right? But yeah, that's what we talk about today. Before we start the video, please hit that like, hit that subscribe, check out my Prince and Patreon if you want to support the channel. Consider becoming a channel member. And with that, let's get into it. So, figure, right? That daunting monster, dude. That thing where we have to learn the entire anatomy just to, kind of portray it remotely correctly, right? Figure is, I think, a huge cornerstone of art, okay? Right? Like, when people think of art, they think of, people sitting at a studio drawing naked people, right? When you think of learning art, when you think of, you know what I mean, right? There is that perception, right? And that perception exists because it's true, right? Not that we yeah, naked, you know what I mean, right? I'm sure any of you who have been in a figure drawing class knows that there is very little sexuality in it, right? Like after 2 seconds of drawing, you're just focused in trying to capture it, trying to make it beautiful, right? And because it's so difficult, right? And basically what brought upon this discussion, okay, for me, was like with this piece right here. Let me sort of give you a good view, right? Let me lean back, right? Want to give something to kind of block it, right, to prevent any weird stuff from happening, right, with the robots. You get what I'm saying, right? So figure, okay, it's hard, man. It's hard. It's just straight up hard. Okay, when you're first learning, you're gonna suck, dude. Okay, even if you draw characters, even if you like are adept to drawing gestures and even like cartoonish characters, right? Drawing real figure is difficult, okay? And that's just the way it is, right? Especially when you're first starting, okay? It becomes easier as you become experienced. That's just the way things are, right? But I don't think that the human figure is ever just straight up easy, okay? Right? Because you need to learn proportions, right? You need to learn gesture, right? The figure could be stiff when you pose them, right? There are things like the hands, okay, right? So, and the face, you know what I mean? And you could be good at the face, but be terrible with the figure, and the whole thing is going to fall apart, okay? And vice versa, you could be good with the figure and draw a bad face, and then the whole thing sucks, right? So it's a really delicate balance to make a beautiful figure that looks great and is working to the things that you want it to, okay? And how do we get there? How do we get there? How do we get to the point where we're drawing those figures that are just dynamite, that really are hitting the spot, okay? It requires the practice of one, like sometimes you at the end of the day, you just gotta practice. You just gotta draw more figure. You just gotta practice getting better at the anatomy, right? Learning when to add something versus when to not add something, right? Of course, that's why figure drawing classes tend to be longer classes. At least when I was in school, right? They like instead of a 3-hour class, it's a 6-hour class. It's a studio class, so you got to stay there and concentrate and draw for like 6 hours. You know what I mean? Not, of course there's a break, but you know what I mean, like basically 6 hours, with little breaks in between as the model steps off to take a break, right? And all I gotta say is, like, if you want to really learn figure, like drawing a live figure, okay, huge, okay, drawing from a model, huge advantage, okay, right? the the idea of a timed pose, right, with a figure, right, and having to change, like depend, like you're doing like quick studies, right? The model's gonna change every minute, okay, so you gotta go quickly, right, to get the gesture down and really understand what are the basic components of a pose, okay, right? And on the vice versa, you have the longer poses where you're gonna need to try to capture the essence of the figure and the details of the figure, okay? And doing that it's tough, dude. It's tough. It's challenging, right? But challenging in a good way, okay? Right? This is the place where you want to challenge yourself, okay? Because figure is so difficult, okay? So if you are able to do it well, okay, and hopefully one day master it, right, which is what we all try to achieve, then you could do then you need to put in the effort, okay? You need to put in the time at the place, like whether you go to workshops, whether you have it in class, right? You need to put in the time and the effort to make a good figure, okay? Of course, like with everything, figures just take time, okay? So when it comes to the render portion, okay, when it comes to the rendering of a figure, okay, you want to pay attention to the subtleties, okay? When you're first starting out, of course everything is just blocking and just right. And when you're doing the early part of the drawing, it's almost okay to kind of section things off, right? Like for example, right, if you have like a shadow, right, and you could literally just draw a line where the shadow line begins, right, and actually it'll look pretty good. You'll be able to establish some kind of depth with that, right? You start with that, okay, then you move into the blocking phase, right? So now you've drawn out the line of the shadow, right? Now you need to fill that shadow with a darker value, okay? So you do that, right? Of course, you want to, you don't want to go too dark. You want to have kind of like a mid-tone, okay? And then as you go, you work darker or you work brighter, okay? So you do something kind of like mid-level, right? Mid-tone, okay? And then from that point on, you start working on the light side, okay, and doing kind of like maybe a light gray, and then from there you work in the lights, and then on the shadow side you darken the darks, right? You know what I mean. So you start off with kind of like a base, right? A base layer that is just like a normal value, you know what I mean, like or a mid-tone, okay. Similar to like if you see like a lot of sculpting stuff, you'll see that when like let's say like when someone has like a helmet, okay, like a 3D printed helmet, they want to paint it, okay, they always have to put a primer on, okay, and it's like kind of like a gray tone, okay. You want a similar thing to that, because from the gray tone you could lighten and you could darken, okay, from that point, so it makes it way quicker, you know what I mean. So establishing that mid-tone is super important, okay. But yeah, that's just rendering in general, right? The hardest part of a figure, I have to say, are the hands and the feet, okay? And when it comes down to the hands and feet, okay, it's a war of attrition, okay, right? And it's a war of attrition that has, what do you call it? As you go forward, it has a diminishing loss, okay? Because if you make your hands and feet too detailed, then they will detract from the rest of the piece, because then they'll just focus on it, right? Of course, you want to make well-rendered hands, you want to make well-rendered feet, right? But if you make them too well-rendered, then the attention goes to them, right? So you have to strike that balance, okay? Unless it's the point. If the hands are the focal point, then you can go by all means go as detailed as you want, right? But if they're not, then that's where the issue lies, okay? Because hands are they're so intricate. They got like all these little moving parts, little delicate things, right? Sometimes the light hits it in a way where and there's so many different planes. There's like, there's potentially 1, 2, 3, 4, different planes. 5 if you count the top of the hand, right? And see this. Oh my God. See, this is what I was kind of afraid of when I'm talking about figure, that there's just so much to talk about, because you could talk about the hands specifically, or you talk about the feet specifically, or you could talk about the torso specifically, right? And okay, so back to the hands. It's just there's a lot to go through when it comes to figure, right? When it comes to the hands and the feet, you want to simplify, okay? Unless, like I said, it's the point. If you have a specific pose that you want to carry through, then then you could render it to the T and get it to that level that you like, and then it's not a problem, right? But if you have a full figure and the hands are just a small part of it, okay, that's the real difficulty, okay? Because at the end of the day, you're trying to balance something small and intricate with something much larger and way more complicated. You know what I mean, right? But like the whole point is to look at the rest of the figure and not the little pieces. Okay, so it's just a fine line of balancing. Okay, and that applies to the rest of the figure, right? Optimally, when it comes to a figure, okay, the thing that you want to really focus on making it render to a T is the face. Okay, the face you could push above and beyond. Okay, right? I'm not gonna say like push it like really far, overwork it, right? But the face is definitely the place where you want the most detail. Okay, unless that's not the point of the piece, right? But in most cases, the face is what the people are gonna look at. Okay, so make the face nice, right? Try to make the obviously the rest of the body nice, and then the hands and the feet, render it to a certain level, and what that level is can you decide, right? But render it to a point where at least the gesture of the hand comes through. Okay, like you see the hand and you know what's happening, right? Whether it be like like them holding something, right? It's an open hand, you know what I mean, right? You don't have to push it all the way through. However, you want the connotation of the hand to come through. You want to understand what the hand is doing, okay, right? It's so like there's so many moving parts to that stuff, right? And what I'm saying, you can apply to like any part of the body, right? So let's talk about anatomy, okay? Anatomy. Of course, it's really important to learn anatomy, okay? But I would argue that it's actually, I think it's overemphasized in today's art world, okay? And I know it's so important, okay? Yes, it's so important, but I also want to say that it's not everything, okay? Knowing every muscle in like the arm and how like the bone pops out in a certain way, right, can be helpful. It is not always helpful, okay, right? Example, on a male figure, learning anatomy is great because there's all these hard points. There's all you could really show the muscle, you know what I mean, right? And that's good because like there's usually flexing and like there's dynamic parts of the body that constrict and retract to show like some form of movement, okay, right? So for a male figure, learning anatomy, that like can like the little parts and everything can be very helpful in getting you to do what you want to do, right? When it comes to the feminine, okay, simplicity is key, dude. Okay, you can't draw every little muscle like thing, right? And like having hard bone parts popping out, okay? when it comes to the figure, you have to be delicate, okay? You have to have subtle transitions, okay? The like right here, this spot right here can be easily messed up if you make it too harsh, okay? If you make it too too blocky, and not like this nice, smooth, gradual transition, okay? Right? So, on that note, let's talk about the difference between male bodies and female bodies, okay? Right? And, like the artist's inclinations between the two, okay? So, when it comes down to it, for you as an artist, you're gonna like one or the other, okay? And that's just the way it's gonna be. People have a natural inclination to either drawing the male figure or drawing the female figure, okay? You will have one or the other, okay? And it's an unconscious thing, okay? And it has nothing to do with like oh yeah, dude, I'm a guy, I like to draw the sexy female, you know what I mean? And of course I do, you know what I mean? It's not like that's bad, right? But I know a lot of male friends who are like, I want to draw a sexy female, but I just end up drawing guys more. You know what I mean? I like drawing guys more. That's just the way it is, right? And it has more of the thing of like, do you like to draw curvy, flowing things, or do you like to draw hard, like really detailed things, okay? If you draw too much detail on a woman, okay, she'll look old, okay? She'll look too like masculine, you know what I mean? If there's too many hard edges, right? On a male side, if it's too smooth, he'll look too feminine, right? So it just has more of a thing to do with the way you draw, okay, and the way you paint, right? But understanding which side of the male versus female form you are can really help inform what your weaknesses are and what your strengths are, okay? So knowing that, valuable. Now that we've talked about the difference between the male and the female form and the inclinations of those things, right? I wanted to talk about what is the fascination with the figure, okay? Right? Why is the figure so like important to art? Okay, so, well, first of all, the figure is important because we're people, okay? I'm a human, you're a human, right? We live in the human world, okay, right? And thus the fascination with the human body is just natural, okay? It comes from within us, okay? So if you look at throughout history, figure is depicted in so many different ways, different forms, right? And it is a bedrock for art, okay? Figure is a bedrock for art. It is the foundation, okay, right? Just like just like nature is, just like I said, figure, you know what I mean? These two things are primordial when it comes to art, okay? Like the face is also on that level, you know what I mean, right? But these are the cornerstones of art. These are like the very base foundations for art from which all other art is created, okay, right? Look at any art piece, okay, and it could be either classified as like a landscape or a figure, okay, in most cases. Of course there's like abstracts and all that stuff, right? And then like portraits and stuff like that, right? But however, in most cases, you're either gonna have a figure, or you can have a landscape, or you can have a landscape with figure, right? You know what I mean? Or a figure and environment, basically, right? That it's such a cornerstone of art that its importance is just inherent, okay? And we know that, and everyone knows that when it comes to art, okay? And when we first start out, when we first are in our little artist brains, okay, right, there is definitely a fascination with the figure, okay, right? When it comes to art, right, I've always stated that there is, despite what I said before, there is a like an adolescent like sexual interest. Okay, I don't want to be like Freudian. Okay, but like we we have that relationship when it comes to artistic things. Okay, right, seeing the figure, seeing a character that we are like attracted to, right, seeing that in a drawing form. Okay, so in like a more idealized form of a human figure, right, it makes us like want to draw it, right, it makes us want to create. Okay, it inspires us. Okay, and that usually comes in the form of a character. Okay, and that character is a figure. You know what I mean, right? And the figure can change, like just like as a character can change, right? But we do have that deep fascination when with the figure. Okay, with the human body. Okay, with our own body and with others. Okay, that is so important to us as a core function of humanity. Okay, right, that's why no matter what, no matter how, like throughout the ages, okay, you will see, like, especially nude figure, right, nude figures depicted in various forms. Okay, and no matter how you look at it, okay, you will be fascinated. Okay, there is something gripping about it. Okay, right. Whether you get tight in the pants or not, you get what I'm saying, right? Usually the artist really doesn't. Okay, unless it's like somebody else's art. You know what I mean? But the artist who's creating the work, like, that's not really what it's about. You know what I mean? Unless that's what the art's about, then fair, right? But there is that slight sexual component. Okay, and we can't ignore that. You know what I mean? Right? Like, look what we're looking at. Okay, it's, titties, dude. Right? But like, it's not just titties. Okay, it's like, for me in this piece, like, what I want to capture is the divine feminine. Okay, I want to show like the natural beauty of a figure, of a woman. Okay, right? And like, as you can see, this piece is not like super crass, or like, we're looking at like some hentai shit. You know what I mean? Right? Some girl like, popping her pussy and all that shit, right? That's fine. I'm good. I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? I love that stuff. I mean, you see my channel. You know what I mean? Right? But there are different ways to portray the figure. Okay, especially the nude figure, in a more elegant way, in a more uplifted way, right? And like, in a lower way, right? And we have to see there is that spectrum. Okay, right? And so how you depict the figure is up to you, and I do not judge how you depict the figure. Okay, but know that when you're depicting the figure, no matter what it is, there is a divinity to it. Okay, right? There's a relatability to it, right? There is something that pulls you in, because there is a person there, there is a human there, right? Whether it's like in an anime form, whether it's in a like a more cartoonish form, right? There is something about the figure that pulls at us. Okay, it's a powerful force. Okay, it's just another person. Okay, but it's a person depicted in an abstracted form. Okay, a simplified form, and because of that, we really get to see the body for the marvel that it is. You get what I'm saying, right? When you see a person, you're just like, oh, whatever, this is a person, right? But when you see the abstracted form of a person, okay, a painting, okay, a drawing, then we almost get to see the figure in a new light. Okay, the figure now becomes realized to us. Okay, now we get to see, like, whoa, like for example, let's say you see like a figure of like some fat, like, naked bearded guy. You know what I mean, right? And he looks kind of, and he's kind of like, in real life he's like kind of ugly, right? But in a drawing, okay, if depicted well, he is beautiful. Okay, and you're like, wow, look at the beauty of that, fat naked guy. You know what I mean, right? Because I've done that. I've had models who are just like, like Santa Claus dude, right? And like, when you draw it well, and you capture the beauty of that, gross what we consider gross in the real world is now beautiful in the art world, okay, in the drawing world. You know what I mean, right? Not to say that you can't draw something ugly. You can, right? But even if you do it, there's a beauty to it. There's something beautiful about it, right? Unless you're just amateurish and you're just drawing like a jank figure, and there's like, you know, and like all the proportions are weird, then like it's not so beautiful, right? But if you do it well, almost anything can be beautiful, okay, right? And because it shows the skill, it shows the attention of detail, you know what I mean, right? And so figure has that quality about it, you know what I mean? It has something that pulls us, okay, that says like, you know, there's something really deep within this. There's something really powerful about the figure, right? And so when you see it in drawing form, you actually get to see the figure better. You actually get to see the beauty of like the mechanics of like our arms and like, you know what I mean, right? If you see a portrait of like a child, you know what I mean, you see like the child is so much more beautiful. The child is so much more like something more visceral about it, you know what I mean, because it's presented in a certain way, right? And being able to capture that, being able to show that delicacy, okay, those subtle transitions, right, and showing the intent of the figure behind it, okay, right, almost like as a character, right? Those things are difficult, and so when someone's able to do it, it is seen as a high feat, okay? It is seen as like wow, okay, look at the beauty of that thing, look at the skill of the artist, you know what I mean, right? While we, the artists, have to, you know, in our minds go like, is it coming through? Are they reading what I'm trying to say, right? Are like, you know, is it too subtle or is it not subtle enough? You know what I mean? There's like those things that we have to battle in our brain, you know what I mean? Whether like, you know, the figure is good enough, whether the figure is abstracted enough, whether the figure is like, is this too rendered or is this too little rendered, right? There's all these little elements that have to ping pong around, and you have to work in your brain and you have to figure out, right? So when it comes down to just drawing figure, there is just so much to think about, right? But however, people who draw a figure well don't like barely think about it at all, right? Does it like hardly ever comes to their mind, right? Because that's just the way of the master, okay? They've already put in the time. They've drawn the figure a million times. They've done so many different like portraits. They've done the hands. They've done all this stuff, right? They've put in the work so that it's all just in the background, okay? It's all in the background as you draw the figure, and all you really need to concentrate is like, is this right? Does it feel right? Yes, no, you know, change it, improve it, or like, you know, take it down a little bit, you know what I mean, right? So it's just a dynamic system that you gotta figure out, okay? And, you know, it's gonna take a while, guys. It's gonna take a while. It's gonna take a while for you to learn the figure. It's gonna take a while for you to learn to appreciate the smaller, intricate details of the figure, okay, right? Because you don't want to look into zoom, you know what I mean? You want to look at the overall, right? That's the best way. You want to look at the overall and then zoom in, okay, when it comes to the details, right? But yeah, you know, if you want some books to really get better, of course, George Bridgman, right? That's a classic. Barbara Bradley, and the clothed figure, right? We haven't even talked about clothes. Oh my god, right? The clothing on a figure could change the entire character of a figure, right? And like that's, you know, that adds to it, right? And like how the cloth, you know, falls and can conform to the natural, you know, the figure shape. But that's for another time. We're just talking about like nude, right? But yeah, all I gotta say is, if you're not good with figure, just get in there, okay? Get in there, practice, okay? Practice, draw a bunch of figures, right? But take the effort to make it look good so that you feel better about the work, right? You know what I mean, right? If you have access to a live figure, do that, okay? The more you're in front of a live figure, the better your figures are going to become, okay? Of course, you have to put in the work, right? But you get what I'm saying, right? Yeah, figure's hard, man. Figure's hard. Look at people who done it well, right? Try to replicate it. You know what I mean? When you're doing it like an abstracted figure, like a more anime figure, right, or a cartoon figure, right? The importance of knowing the more academic, okay, the more academic form of the figure will allow you to learn how to abstract correctly, okay? What people don't understand about anime is that you have to be really fucking good with clothing and figure to even remotely get to draw it well, okay? That's just the way things are, okay? So if you want to get good at that, get good at figure, get good at the fundamentals, okay? That's just the way it is, you know what I mean? One will inform the other will not inform the other, okay? The more abstracted form will not inform the more realistic form, okay? The more realistic form will inform the abstracted form, okay? Right, that's what I said, form like 500 times, okay? But yeah, learn it, get better. I think we could end the video here, guys, before I go too long, you know what I mean? Right, I could go on about the figure like all fucking day, right? Yeah. Please, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like, hit that subscribe, check out my Prince of Patreon if you want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member, ring that bell for notification, all that bullshit, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks a lot.